thank you everyone for joining us. This is the second Paperweight Collectors Circle, so online, and it's the start of the sort of Meet the Artist series. So that's what we're calling these. And so thank you so much for joining Clinton from New England in the US. We've also got different members joining us from Canada. We've got other members in the US, got UK, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand tonight. So we've got a mix, which is brilliant to have the opportunity to bring everyone together like this. So we're recording the meeting for those members who are unable to join. And we just spoke about some of the being able to mute and unmute, but do feel free to ask any questions at any point. So we've got real treats tonight to come. So delighted to welcome you, Clinton, to the talk. I was first sort of made aware of Clinton's work when I was at PCA earlier this year. And so we were in New England, and it was really great to see some of the animals and some of the plants, the wildlife that occur in New England make it into the paperweights. And we can just see a sneak preview of one of them, which is the eastern newt, just in the bottom corner of this screen here. So yeah, we tend to see lots of plants, wildlife, the area reflected in Clinton's work. But the other one is also some really fun sort of characters, particularly from sort of childhood. So I'm sure we'll hear from Clinton a bit about some of the inspiration that he draws for his work. And if you aren't aware, then there's the paperweights, but what there also are these incredible, fairly big sort of marbles, which have got two scenes on one side. So you could have an eastern newt, such as the one we see here on the screen on one side, and then some incredible plants, or maybe I think it's Goofy character as well. I'm not very good with my characters. We may see some later that just sort of really make you smile. So we're going to have a treat tonight. As you hear, we're going to be having a bit of a studio tour with Clinton, seeing something being made, and we'll have some opportunity to ask questions all the way through. And then we've also got some weights of some images that some of you have got your collections. And if you have got any weights that you haven't shared any images of, do feel free at some point to go and grab them and try and hold them up to the screen when we get to those. So yeah, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Clinton, and over to you.
All right, thanks for having me, everyone. This is exciting. Looking forward to this. So like they said, I'm going to give a brief tour of my studio. I'm going to flip my camera so you won't be seeing me, because it's easier for me to talk and see what I'm pointing the camera at. So I'm going to flip that now. So this is our property here. We've got a little over 10 acres. It was an apple orchard in the 1800s. This tree that's got no leaves on it. It is fall here, so this is one of the first trees that loses its leaves. This is one of those apple trees that's still here. They're scattered throughout the woods behind us. And this is the studio building. It's an oversized two-bay garage. There's an upstairs. Upstairs is my wife's studio. She does all kinds of art up there, painting, clay sculpture, everything. You name it, she does it, more or less. So here's the inside. It's also kind of my man cave. I come in here, play pool. So this is some of the equipment. I'm in the process of setting up a hot shop. I just got this furnace recently. I just had the door plugged on it so I don't get dust in the inside of it. But that'll hold 60 pounds of glass in the inside once it's hot. It's a slow process putting a hot shop together because it's pretty costly. So I've been slowly getting equipment. This is my little glory hole. I use this all the time for my paperweights. This gets up to about 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly. I was just using it yesterday, actually. I was in here encasing. So my annealing oven is over here, and it's on from yesterday. It's got 3 paperweights and 2 marbles in it. Right now it is 455 degrees Fahrenheit. So there is a Goofy paperweight in there, one that's got raspberries with bees swarming around it, and also a lilac and the 2 marbles. So back over here, this is another glory hole. I gotta put this one together for when I light that furnace, because I'll be doing larger work, and there's a box of the brick that I'll be using for the inside to build it. I just had the electricians here yesterday, actually, getting this big kiln hooked up. because I didn't have enough power in the building. So they upgraded the power and put a new plug in for this oven because it's quite large, way too big for paperweights. It would take I could probably get 100 paperweights in this kiln. It's so big. So that's why I use the smaller annealing oven. And when I do make paperweights, I run 3 kilns at the same time. Now this one right here, I use to keep 1/2 of the paperweight hot. So I'll prepare the bottom half. I'll put it in this kiln. It'll actually be on the end of a metal rod like this. So I'll lift up this guillotine door and the paperweight will go right inside there. It'll rest in this clamp right here. And the glass doesn't touch the bottom of the kiln, so it doesn't pick up kiln dust or anything like that. The other kiln you saw was my annealing oven. I have one that I use for encasing. So this is the one that I would use for encasing. There is a vacuum pump that's hooked up underneath of it with a line that goes up to the tube. In here right now is a stump sucker. This is what I use for making my marbles. This is pretty tiny. It's only maybe 1.5 inches, perhaps, wide. For paperweights, I mostly use this vacuum cup. I do have a couple other ones. I've got some pretty large ones. This one's just a little over 3 inches. I was using this yesterday as well. And I was polishing some marbles the other day as well. These are going out to an auction company. They'll be auctioned off in October through Jeffrey S. Evans, I believe. So there's some of the double-sided. A betta fish. I have a betta fish in my fish tank that's very similar to this one with some aquatic flowers, florals, frog. We don't have these in New England. This species is native to South America. We still actually have frogs in our yard. We'll have frogs for another couple more weeks before it starts to get too cold. Coral reef. And there's the orange salamander. We have a lot of these in our yard, newts rather. On any given day, we can walk out in the yard and catch 15 of these things because there's a wetlands behind our house. These garden spiders are also native to where we live as well. They get quite large. They're one of the larger species we have. No shortage of strawberries. So marbles, I polish them on this machine. It's got 3 motors on it, and you kind of clamp it together and it just spins the marble and feeds water to it and polishes it. I really don't have to do anything. This is like a second employee. I just sit here and babysit it. So I watch movies when I'm running this machine. That's part of the cold working area. This is more cold working. I use this for grinding flat bases down on the paperweights and polishing the bottoms of them. And this is a lathe. This I use for polishing out a dome on the bottom of the paperweight. So it would take different grits of wheels that go onto the end. And everything is fed by water. I don't have plumbing in my building, so I have to get creative. I fill that bucket with water and run a line down to it. So here's a paperweight that is waiting to be polished. It's still rough on the bottom from when I took it off the punty. So that'll get all polished off and cleaned up and have a nice dome in the bottom of it. Some apples, the inspiration from the tree outside the window. So the cold working cart, all the different grits of that wheel that I use. It takes quite a few to go through. It is a messy process. It's my least favorite part of the process. It's loud, it's wet, it's messy, and I don't enjoy doing it. The bottom part of this, these are all seconds. These will they just collect here. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but they're not going anywhere other than in my studio. So so I'll show you the color that I use. I use lamp working cane. I have a whole cabinet full of it. So I have thinner rods that I use for sculpting. This is a transparent orange. some of the colors they don't make in lampwork and cane, so I have to buy big bars of it and cut it into pieces and then heat it up in my torch and stretch it out to make the cane that I need. This is a wet saw that I use for the actual crystal that I would use for encasing the paperweights. I used to use shot, but they no longer make shot, or at least you can't get it in the US anyhow. So I switched over to these crystal bars. These are about 4 feet long and 2 feet in, or 2 inches in diameter. And I cut them on the bar for the size that I need for the paperweight. These bottles, these are fun. I just found all these bottles in the woods throughout the years with my father. I've been using them to put glass powdered colors in, just to keep them clean. These are the good paperweights. These ones are getting ready to go to that auction as well. That's what I've been working on the past few weeks. Inspiration. Sometimes if I'm not finding inspiration in the yard, I flip through these books. I was sitting out here the other day. I've got more books in here, but these are just the ones I was looking through the other day. Wildflowers. Native to the Berkshires. That's where I live, in Berkshire County, Western Massachusetts. About as far away from Boston as you can get. It's very quiet where I live. We don't have traffic and things along those lines. Now, most of my equipment was built by a man named Randall Watkins. He was 89 when he passed away, and he was still building equipment on into his 80s. All my vacuum cups and everything he had made for me. This bench that I'll be using for when I get the hot shop set up. I've got pipes over there that he made for me that are behind my annealing oven. Probably the vast majority of the studio was built by Randall, and he just collected glass. So if I had something in mind I wanted him to make, I would just trade him glass for it, and he was a great guy. So this is my primary workstation. This is where I spend 95% of my time sitting here. I work on a Carlisle CC torch. I've had this torch for probably over 20 years now, I guess. It's been a good, reliable torch. This is like a little kiln. They actually say it's a hair curling iron. This will get up to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know who would want to curl their hair in something that hot, but I use it to keep components warm so they don't break. For instance, if I'm making a salamander body, that's a fairly large mass of glass, so I can put the body inside there and keep it hot so it doesn't crack on me while I'm working on the legs. Like Goofy, for instance, I make the head first and I put the head in there, keep it hot so it doesn't break on me. I make the body and I just add piece by piece. So I'll stick the head on the body, put it back in the oven, make an arm, put that arm on, put it back in the oven, just so it doesn't crack on me. So it's a tedious process making larger scaled sculptural stuff, and it can go wrong very quickly. So this is just a steel plate. I have it right in front of my torch. You can see that bullseye right there from my torch at one point. That just prevents eye fatigue. So when I'm working, I don't have distraction in the background going on, and it's just easier for me to focus. These are some of the color trays I use. They're actually from a sushi set, and I just kind of took them and used them out in here. So I use glass powders that I would roll the rods in to give it things more of a natural, organic look. Different shades of green. Some pinks in here. So I have a whole cabinet full of these powdered enamels that I use. So these are all in here. They last a long time because the scale of the work is so small that's in the paperweight that this will last me a good couple of years. So these cabinets are all filled with different colors. These are some of the tools that I would use for the hot shop. I don't use these for paperweights, really. Some of them, I will use this one occasionally for paperweights if I'm doing a double-sided encasement. These are some blocks that Ken Rosenfeld gave me. They're made out of graphite. I'm not much into graphite. I don't like the way the glass spins in it. So I actually prefer to use cherry wood blocks. They have to soak in water. So these are always in water. This one marble block right here is the oldest tool that I have in the studio. I bought this 25 years ago when I first started working with glass, and it's amazing that this piece of wood hasn't completely disintegrated after 25 years, but I still use it. So I'm going to do a demo for you. I'm going to make a bee. I did some of the prep work already as far as just getting the color ready. So I'm going to go through the process of making it. It took me about 2 years to figure out how to make the fuzz on the back of a bee through a lot of trial and error. At the end of the day, if I had 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever, I would mess around and try to get that fuzz, and I just could never get it. And then I was sitting on the couch one night and I said, well, maybe if I use the same cane that I would use for stamen on flowers and just stretch it out smaller and swirl it up, that might look like fuzz. And sure enough, that works. So I've been doing that for quite a while and it looks pretty good. So I'm going to light my torch. Normally I would have, I'll flip my camera 1 second. Normally I would have this ventilation system going and it would pull any fumes out. But it's kind of loud. You guys won't hear me. Plus the flame I'm going to use to make this bee is so small. It's really not going to put out too much. I'll try to get as close to this as I can. But it's going to be small. So I'm going to position it in front of the camera so you can kind of see. So when I work, I use jeweler's goggles. These make a world of difference. I can't work without these because everything is so small. It just helps to really get detailed. Like if I'm making the toes on a salamander, I can really get in there and see exactly what I'm doing, and it makes life a lot easier to have these. So this is a new pair I just got about 2 weeks ago because my old pair broke on me after 10 years or so. So this torch is run on propane and oxygen. Right now, this is just the center fire that I'm using. This is the tiny flame. I have a foot switch on the floor. If I step on it, it'll produce, if it's still on from yesterday, everything's off right now, but it will make a bigger flame. So I mostly just use that big flame for when it comes time to actually encase the paperweight. I very rarely use it when I'm making the setups. I really don't have any reason to use a big flame. A little flower with a big flame like that is just going to melt the whole flower in. So I'm going to start. First thing I'm going to do is make the wings. It's a little hard to see, but this is actually a piece of latticino that I had made, and it just gives a nice little pattern in the bee's wings. And I'm going to skip one part of the wing. Normally, I would take another little thin black rod and draw a vein on it, make it look a little more natural, I guess. So I'm not going to do that today. So I just squish that. It's already cold. It's pretty much cold as soon as the tools hit it. This glass is such a small amount of glass that it cools incredibly fast. I got seconds to work with it before it's too cold. So there's one wing. All right, it's a little cold today, so I'm sniffling because it's cold out. It's in the 50s today, and it's been abnormally warm here in Massachusetts. It's been in the 80s for the past couple of weeks, and then today is the coldest day that we've had. So it does get pretty cold here in the winter. Where I live is my house is in Hinsdale, Massachusetts, and my workshop, my studio, is in Peru, Massachusetts. The town lines go right through the middle of our property. So we pay four property taxes here, and Peru is the highest elevation in the state of Massachusetts. So it is colder here than it is 5 minutes down the mountain. We do get into the negative digits sometimes. It'll be, it'll get down to -10 occasionally here. I'd say an average winter day is in the 20s to 30s. I forgot to put my glasses on. I'm working without them. No wonder I was having a harder time seeing. All right. So I'm going to start with the back end of the bee. So this is just another piece of cane that I'm going to use to build the bee off of. On the other side of this is actually my signature cane. It's probably too small to see, but my initials are on the end of this thing. I was using this yesterday for the marbles and the paperweights that I was making. So I'm going to start with a black rod. and just kind of melt it in, put it right on the tip. Separate a little bit of glass. I'm just going to do what's called gathering. So it's just a little ball right now. You can see it was orange. Now it's turning black because it's getting cold so fast. So I got some yellow. I'm just going to alternate back and forth between yellow and black for the tail end of the bee. Melt these in, get them nice and blended. You can see that yellow. It looks white right now, but as it cools, it'll slowly turn yellow.
Clinton, I'm just going to jump in there. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yep.
Yeah, we're just struggling slightly to see it when it's up close because it's so small and the focus isn't going to grab on that. So don't worry, just so you know that
Okay.
we're not seeing it quite as clearly as you are. But I think most people can sort of see. We can actually see it slightly better when it's further back, if anything.
Okay. Is that good? Right about there.
But it's just against the light behind you at the moment. If you hold it like
sure.
in front of the torch, yeah, there's a real spotlight just behind you there.
Maybe I can put it right in front of the torch.
Yeah, that's cool. That's better.
You can watch me too while
Yeah, we can see the black and yellow on the bee now. Much better. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. You're welcome. So this is the second yellow stripe going on. And this is a pretty tiny flame that I'm working with. I'll get it even smaller when I'm making the toes on the salamanders. I'll get this flame so you practically can't even see it, because if it's too big, I'll start melting in the other toes that I've already put on, and that's also why these glasses come in pretty handy. I can really see what I'm doing when I'm putting those toes on.
How many bees do you think you've made now, Clinton, in your
probably hundreds of them at this point. Yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I'm chose to make this, because they go fairly quickly compared to other things. I was thinking about a salamander, but we'd be sitting here for quite a while if I was doing that. So just gently heating it in. I don't want to heat it in too fast, because if I do, you can actually get bubbles in the glass. And then when I go to encase it in a paperweight, those bubbles are going to show up in the inside of the weight. And it's going to look like you got dust or something inside of the piece. So slow and steady when it comes to melting this type of glass anyway. All right, so there's the back end of the bee. It's going to get darker as it cools. And I'm going to work on the body. And this is the part that took me a while to figure out, the fuzz. I'm going to add the fuzz to the body after I get this attached to it. Okay, so there's the middle. And here's the yellow cane that I would also use this for making the stamen and the flower, like I said, and I just pulled it out thinner than I normally would for when I'm making flowers. And it's not as easy as just making cane. When I was experimenting with this, I discovered that if I striped on that yellow too thin, then it would almost be diluted and you couldn't see the fuzz on the bee. So I had to make everything thicker than I normally would, just so that fuzz would pop out more. So I just swirled that around. I'm going to melt it in. Use this little tool. Most of the time I use these tweezers. This is one of I use this probably 75% of the time. I use this pretty often when I'm sculpting. A lot of these tools I've gotten from either my dentist or at the flea market. I'm always looking for tools at the flea market, so I go. All right, so there's the body. I'm going to put the head on. Now, when I was in my 20s, I worked at a glass factory, and we did production work there. I worked there for almost 4 years. In the 4 years I was there, one of our biggest products were apple I made maybe 12,000 apples in the 4 years that I was working there. We would typically spend an entire month making nothing but apples, and then the owner would give us a break and put us on something else for another month. It was mostly Swedish styled glass that we would make there. But all that repetition was good because you could really familiarize yourself with how glass moves and works going through that volume. We would go through 900 to 1,800 pounds of glass every week when I worked in that factory. And there was just myself and one other head glass blower, and we shared an assistant between the two of us. So I just straightened the body out. The body was a little off to the side, so I just heated up and just pushed the body right back to the center. So I'm going to attach the wing. So the head is on. I got some fuzz on the head. I didn't put it on the eyes, so the eyes are not all fuzzy. There's one wing. And another. All right, so I got 2 wings on that bee. Now I'm going to separate him. When I separate him, I like to pull the cane that's attached to it downward. When I do that with that separation, it already it makes a little stinger on the bee, so it's all done. So I'm going to switch this camera around. Normally, like I said, this little oven would be on. It's not on right now. And everything I make, there's a metal plate in the inside of it. I would stick it in that plate and leave it there. And at the end of the day, just to keep dust out from that oven, I put this piece of kiln shelf to block the door. That way dust doesn't get in, and it also helps to keep everything in the inside to cool down slower, so it doesn't run the risk of cracking at all. Show you a couple of the other tools while I'm here. I'm just going to shut this torch off. So yesterday I was making marbles, and I've got 2 marble molds. This one I don't really use very often. I use the back of it actually more than I do the front for flattening things. But these 2 sizes are the sizes that I use the most. This is double-sided. I never really use this side, but more graphite. A lot of these tools are made out of graphite. Like I said, I'm not crazy about using graphite, but I cannot find a wooden mold that small for making marbles. The reason I don't like graphite because it chills the surface of the glass and you get little marks on it, and then I got to go back in the torch and reheat it to get those little marks out. Oh yeah, kombucha, one of my favorite things to drink. I'm always drinking kombucha. Some of the colors, these are some of my more common colors. This green cane right here, like I said, some of the cane they make specifically for lamp working, and others I have to pull out myself. I use this green all the time, and this is one that I have to pull out myself. I actually pulled this yesterday when I was done encasing the paperweights I was working with. And I always keep clear. I build a lot of things off of clear. So I'll put this chunk inside of that little kiln right there, get it hot and pick it up. And I got to peel the surface of this clear off, or else you'll see all kinds of scuzz on the inside of the paperweight. It's amazing when you stick this into the flame, you can really see dirt and whatever is on the surface of it. And once I use tweezers, I use these bigger ones, and it peels the surface of that clear off. So you got nice clean glass, and you won't see any stuff you don't want to see in the inside of that paperweight, more or less. Oh, well, I'll show you this too. I almost forgot about this one. This is an important part of the step. So everything I make, like I said, it goes in that little kiln right there. And the next day when it's all cooled off, I put it on top of this. There's nothing on it right now, but there was yesterday. So this is just a little heating device here, and I put all my components on that. And this was just a dog dish that I bought at the pet store, and put a handle on the top of it. So everything I make, it'll go on there, and then I use this hand torch right here, and this device I'll use to lock in whatever I'm working with. So this will be hot. All my lamp work components will be on there, and I'll be using this torch and tweezers to assemble my design. And while I'm assembling, I use this. This is just a glass rod on a clip, so I can attach my setup to that, so it's not moving around all over the place. I'll just heat up that little piece of clear and attach it to a leaf or something, and then I'll build my setup off of that, and it keeps it still, so it's not moving around while I'm trying to add components to it, and so on and so forth. I used to use that hot plate right there. That was a scientific one. I paid about $120 for that one, and I went to the convenience store and paid about $12 for this one, and this one works 10 times better than the scientific one does. So scientific one got retired. So, and that just keeps all the dust off of it. These are just like heat resistant pads. They do burn over time. When I'm making marbles, I keep them here because I knock my marbles off right there, and I use this torch to flame polish the punty mark in, and pick it up with these tongs and put them in my kiln, my annealing oven. So that pretty much, I think for the most part, I think that sums up the studio as far as all the stuff I got in here, I believe. So it's always a work in progress in here. I'm always adding new equipment and so on and so forth. So we've been here for 14 years now, and it's changed quite a lot in here. So does anybody have any questions at all?
I was going to say thank you so much, Clinton. That was, yeah, really, really interesting and great to see the little bee. So how long will the bee? Will it be overnight that it'll be in your small kiln?
It's probably cool right now because that kiln is not on. I don't like turning that oven on when I have the annealer on, because I have blown a fuse in here a couple times when there's too much going on. And I don't want to run the risk of losing 3 paperweights and 2 marbles in that oven. So that bee is so small that it's probably fine. It's really the larger stuff like the goofy and the bigger frogs and things that I really want to cool down slowly in that kiln. So that bee is, I could probably pick that bee up right now if I wanted to. I don't think it's hot at all. No.
Well, I know I've got a couple of questions for you, but I will pause and I'll just throw it open to the group. So if anyone has any questions for anything that you've seen or any of the equipment, then do come off mute and ask Clinton.
Sure. Oh, I almost forgot these. These are a pretty important part of the process. These are the pipes that I actually use for when I'm making the paperweights. They're short. They're maybe 2 feet long. Whereas your traditional pipes that people would use for glass blowing, like these are about close to 5 feet long anyway. They're quite a bit bigger, and I wouldn't use these for paperweights. It'd be too awkward. So
I must admit, yeah, my initial sort of instinct is, I haven't necessarily seen a full paperweight being made from start to finish. So it's intriguing, really, just how many different pieces of equipment you've got and all the different processes. And I love the dog's dinner bowl with the handle on it, and that's where you're assembling. I can visualize that now. So that's really great. But
everyone does things a little differently. I know most of the paperweight artists, they, instead of using a kiln like that one for keeping the bottom half hot, they actually put it on a pipe turning machine underneath with a Bunsen burner, keeping that hot. The reason I don't do that is I like precision. I have no idea what that flame temperature is on that Bunsen burner. Or this kiln, it's digital, so I know it's at 1030 degrees. My glass is not going to slump. It's not going to crack. It's right at the temperature I want it to be at. So everybody's got their own way of doing things, I guess. There's no right or wrong way as long as the end result ends up working. So
Clinton, how tidy do you think your workshop rates? Because to me, it's looking very organized. We were visiting some friends last night, some paperweight collectors, and they showed me some video they recorded back in, I don't know, it was like 80s, 70s from Perthshire and from Harland. And some of the workshops there, like a bomb had gone off. It was just like, it was really messy. So I think yours is pretty tidy. How do you think it rates?
It is pretty tidy right now. Yeah. I have a storage unit down the road, so I've been slowly moving things into that unit and just getting this set up. I don't like a mess and chaos in my studio. So every morning I leave my workbench the way it is when I'm done working. So it's going to be a mess at the end of the day. But every morning when I start, I always clean it. I don't like stuff all over the place. I just find it distracting, and it's harder for me to work. I have a friend that lives 10 minutes up the road from me, and he is also a glass worker. And when you go into his shop, I don't know how he works, because there is just glass everywhere. You can't even see the countertop. It would drive me nuts. I would have a hard time dealing with that. I just like things organized. Even in the hot shop on the bench, like this is where you would lay your tools on the bench. I lay my tools out exactly in order I want them to be. I don't like them touching each other. I want to be able to see right where they are so I can get them if I need them instantly without having to shuffle and move things around. So I like organization.
Very good.
I'll just pause and see if anyone's, if you'd like any questions, come off mute. If not, then I'll jump in with my one, but I don't want to hog the airtime, so I'll just pause a moment. No. So whilst somebody's maybe working that out, so Clinton, I was intrigued about sort of thinking that previous dental instruments were making it to your studio, and also I think you said the 12,000 apples, but just what a short time you made that in.
Yeah.
Do you find that you've got any sort of RSI, or is there anything like that, and the weight of it, or are you generally sort of haven't got any injuries from all of your glass work so far?
Every once in a while, my left wrist will go out on me from just the years of, because you have to constantly turn a pipe. And I still do furnace work. I work 2 days a week for another artist, assisting them. So we do large scaled work there. It is heavy. So occasionally my wrist will go out on me, and my right elbow goes out on me every once in a while. I've really only had one bad burn in the 25 years I've been doing this, and that was I can kind of demonstrate with this. It's not on. So the big kiln, this was 24 years ago. I was actually making the apples at the factory, and we had a bigger oven than this, and I was loading in. Keep in mind that you wear heat resistant gloves. I was putting a piece in, and my arm was right here, and the door just closed, and it closed my arm. So my arm hit that side and got hit that side. So I burned both sides of my arm from getting closed in the door. And that was pretty unpleasant. I do have a scar on my arm still from it, but that's about the only bad burn. You do get burns all the time. I got burned the other day. They're just a little hot piece of glass might pop off and hit you. It feels like a bee sting for a split second, and you get over it and you continue on with your day, more or less. So
and then I just wanted to touch on, so you've mentioned Goofy a couple of times, and I definitely know who Goofy is, but with some of your other characters, what sort of was your inspiration about some of the the more cartoon characters? Because it's very unusual to see them in paperweights, and they're so fun and just make me smile loads. So I'm just interested to know what sort of how you started that, really.
I started the characters because I have a son. He's 11 now, and I used to read to him every night. Now that he's older, he's not really into that. And the first character piece I made was Peter Rabbit Paperweight, and I was reading him Peter Rabbit before he went to bed, and I was just looking at the illustrations in it and just admiring them. I just thought they were so beautiful, and I was like, oh, let's see if we can make a paperweight with Peter Rabbit in it. And that's kind of how that started. And it's just evolved from there, I guess, just with the books that I read him. And he watches all the Disney classics and whatnot. So that's how I think Mickey Mouse was the first Disney character I've done. I've done Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Pluto, and Donald Duck, I think, so far in the Disney series. So I get a lot of inspiration from him. There's a lot of museums and culture where I live. Within a half-hour radius, I can be at anywhere from there's probably at least a half a dozen museums. I was at the Norman Rockwell Museum 2 weeks ago. We have another museum called Mass Mocha, which is a half hour north of here. My wife is actually up there today. We go there all the time. That's one of the largest contemporary art museums in the States. There's a lot of inspiration. There's so much nature where we live as well. Half of our population are second homeowners, and they come up here for the culture and all the nature and whatnot. There's a lake 600 feet from me. If I walk out to the edge of my driveway, you can see the lake from there. So we go down there. We've got boats and kayaks. There's no shortage of inspiration or where we are.
Yeah, it sounds an amazing place. And then I just wanted to touch on something you said sort of early on, really, is that it maybe links to the second part of the question, which is, I think you showed us, I may not get the technical term right, but basically a bigger oven or a bigger kiln. And I suppose I was going to ask sort of what's next for you in terms of your sort of design and thinking, Clinton? Is that going bigger pieces? Is that the sort of direction I've sort of thought you might have been mentioning?
That is, if you were to go on my website, I think there's some older pieces I made years ago. I was combining blown work with paperweights, and I would like to revisit that. I've got an older piece actually in the studio I made maybe 12 years ago or longer actually. And it broke, so it's waiting to be fixed, but I can kind of show you with that piece. It's filthy at the moment too. It's got glass dust all over it, but I'll kind of show you. So that's kind of what I was leaning for. So the center would be like a paperweight, like that is. This is one of the first paperweights I made. I probably made this in 2008, maybe 2007 roundabouts. So the foot is absolutely filthy. That's all glass dust on it. It would be purple like the rest of this one. So this is kind of the direction I want to go back in. This one separated right at the joint. So I can fix that with a type of glue called Hextol that's specifically for glass. It's actually stronger than glass, and it will hold the bond for forever compared to whatever happened with this one. So that's kind of what I want to do. That's why I got that bigger kiln, so I can put bigger stuff in there. And I want to do more sculptural work combined with the paperweights just to tap into a different market. That's why I got the furnace, just so I can do some larger scaled work. And this would be considered a smaller furnace. Like I said, it only holds 60 pounds of glass. The other hot shop I work at, that one holds 200 pounds of glass. And that factory I worked at when I was in my 20s, that one held 900 pounds of glass. Just because we made so much volume, we would just empty that 900 pounds every single week.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's interesting. You know, that looked amazing, seeing that incredible purple. And I love the idea of mixing it with the paperweights. It's almost, you know, I have sort of quite a few antique sort of weights, but, you know, you see in some of the books that sort of, you know, maybe the vase, maybe a tazza, possibly people call it, with the paperweight in the bottom. So that sounds really intriguing. And I think we'll probably, Brian, you've got some images from some Clinton weights of members, so it'd be great if we could show those to you, Clinton, yeah, and any sort of thoughts from when you think, you know, anything you might like to add to them. And I think, Steve, I spotted you might have something there as well. So if we went through the slides first, Brian, if you're able to do your sharing, and then make sure we're giving everyone an opportunity on the call to, if they have got one.
Yeah, no, I'll do my best to try to remember. Some pieces I just don't even remember. I looked on eBay about a year ago and somebody was selling a piece I made, and I was like, I didn't make that. And there's no way. And then there was a photo of my signature, and I'm like, sure, well, I must have made that. I just don't remember.
Brian, just sorry, can we just go back to the bear one, just on this previous slide, if that's okay first? So with this one, Clinton.
Oh, Vic, sorry to interrupt. I've got those on a separate slide later on.
Okay, so, sure. Yeah. Okay, so
okay.
This is Peter's weight. So Peter's on the call. I don't know, Peter, if you want to come off the call and talk about it, but if not, if you start, Clinton, with this one, it's amazing colors.
Yeah, that is a species of salamander that we have in this area. They are the rarest salamander that I know of to spot in this area. And oddly enough, we have actually found 5 of them this year. And up until this year, we hadn't seen one in maybe 3 or 4 years. They're just a yellow spotted salamander. I think that's what they call them. But my son found 3 of them, and I found 2 of them. Actually, if I were to walk outside right now, I could probably flip over a rock, and there's probably one right under that rock still. We found it about 2 days ago. I guess he's probably still there.
Oh, wow. Brian and I, after the PCA this year, we went off, because we're wildlife and bird watchers. We went off into the woods in Rhode Island area to then go and look for salamanders. And I was hoping to find this little fella, but we didn't. We found, I think it was a red one anyway, a new species that we haven't seen. But it was really exciting just to find different salamanders. But yeah, this is really great, this guy hiding amongst all the flowers.
Yeah, they get quite large too. They're the largest salamander that we have in the area. The ones we found are not the biggest ones I've seen. I'm actually walking outside right now to see if he's under that rock still. I come outside.
Let us know if you find one, because we're just sharing the screen at the moment. So
yeah. No, I'll flip see if he's still there.
Can I ask, how do you these are like water droplets on your leaves? Are they on the foliage? That's obviously all your bubbles? It really gives the impression there's sort of like water droplets on there. Are they all intentionally placed, or what's the technique there?
No, I use a tool to crimp the edges of those leaves, so you can see that there's ridges on those leaves. So I use a tool to put a little crimp in those ones. It's a pretty time-consuming process. So if I put those crimps there, it will trap a little bit of air where those crimps are.
Right.
No, I don't see that salamander. I think he moved on.
Well, thanks for looking, Clinton.
Sure.
Okay, should we move to the next one? This one, yeah, really sweet.
Yep, I think that's the first Peter Rabbit pendant that I had made. Making pendants and marbles brings a totally different challenge than a paperweight. You'd think that because it's smaller, it's easier. It's easier on the body, but I think they're actually harder to encase, because I have to be more dead on, because it is such a small area to get that glass to go into. If I'm off just by a little bit, the whole thing will be thrown off. And those setups are so small that they don't really weigh anything. So when I encase, they can shift. So everything has to be dead precise when I encase those. If I'm off by a little bit, then I end up throwing it away, more or less. So,
well, wait, that one got posted. It was one of the members on the call here. That one got posted in the Facebook group. And then it was really interesting how, people are like, oh, I'd love one. So I don't know, Mafanui, if you're able to say how it made it from America to New Zealand, and what was special about that one, as to why you particularly fell in love with that one.
Well, that one came directly from Clinton a number of years ago. But, the Peter Rabbit was just absolutely adorable. And I've had Peter Rabbit books since I was 4 or 5. And, of course, the children had them when they were being read to. So it's a whole set of memories of childhood, both my own and my children's. So that was just a no-brainer. I had to have him. He's just amazing.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. Okay, Brian, have we got another one? I don't know how many there are, by the way, so it's a bit of a surprise for me as well, this. So you'll have to guide me, Brian, as to let me know when it's the last one.
Sure. So, Clinton, as you can see, this obviously isn't one of your more detailed and intricate weights, but I'm sure you recognize it.
I do. Yes,
yeah,
it was a table favor for, I believe it was Wheaton Village, I think, a few years ago, I believe.
Yeah.
I forget what I did, maybe 200 of those, I think.
Yeah, so that's actually well, 2 reasons I included. It's I'm afraid to say the only weight of yours we own so far, but I'm sure we'll fix that in years to come. Yeah, I bought this at this year's PCA because we were able to buy some of the previous table favors. But it was really, it's a lovely little sweet weight, and it's got your signature cane on the back, which is great. But I wanted to ask about making that many paperweights, like, you know, for an event to order? I guess you probably don't do that so much nowadays. And you know, just how was that, having to make that many weights, and albeit mini ones? I mean, how long did it take? What was that like?
It was long days. If I remember correctly, I think I made them all in about three weeks, I think, roundabouts. I don't mind doing repetitious work sometimes. It's a way for me to shut my brain off. And I did so much of it when I worked in that glass factory that I've gotten used to it. I say the thing I don't like about it the most is the way your body feels at the end of the day. You end up being pretty sore, even though those are small.
Yeah.
I'm still using a steel pipe and I'm on my feet all day and I'm moving back and forth. So
Yeah.
after a good, I think I would spend about 10 hours, work a 10-hour day making those. So I'd be pretty tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, wow.
But actually making the setups, that was I didn't mind doing that. I would just sit on my torch and just keep on repeating through the whole day and just make it. And like I said, I'm used to it. The other studio I work at, it is a production studio too, not to the extent that factory was at. We might make 13 pieces in a day. They're all pretty similar to each other, but it's not like making 150 apples in a day.
No. It's very sweet little weight. So so this isn't actually a member's weight, but I pinched this off your website. So obviously, looking at this, one would think there's two weights here, but of course, this is what you're sort of, one of the things you've become known for are these marbles, which are just amazing. And I just wanted to know, could you sort of just describe to someone who really still isn't getting my head around how these paperweights are, you know, put together and made? What's the process for sort of making these two weights sort of back to back, like you know, the two setups back to back?
Sure. Well, first, the Grateful Dead bear, that was Eric Jump. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's one of the paperweight dealers. He actually approached me and asked me to make a whole Grateful Dead bear themed paperweight series. So I think I made 10 different Grateful Dead paperweights for Eric. And I decided to start sticking them in marbles as well. So for the process of a double-sided marble, I would make the bear side. I would assemble all that, and then the mouse. So I'd have two different setups on my hot plate that I showed you earlier with the lid on it, and I would encase one half of it, and I would add the color background to it, like the sky that's behind the bear. And that kiln that I have, that I use to keep things hot, once I've made that one half, I would stick it in that kiln and keep it hot. And then I would encase the second half, add the colored ground to it and everything. And once that was all done, I have two rollers on my bench, and I take both pieces, and they're both in my torch flame, just the bottom of the piece though. I don't want to hit the side of that marble. It's just the bottom I'm heating. So I'm getting them hot, and I'm just looking at the color of the glass as it heats. And that's how I know that it's hot enough, just because I've done it so many times. I can see what kind of orange. I'm like, all right, that orange is hot enough right there. I can stick them together. So I would take them out of the flame. They're both on a steel pipe, and I would just stick them together, but try it without getting air stuck in the middle of them. That's a different story altogether. That's where the challenge comes, is not getting a big air bubble right in the middle.
Right.
So I just stick them together, go back in my torch, and I heat one side and separate that side from the pipe. So now I got two halves on one pipe, and I use that little marble tool that I showed you earlier, and I shape it up in that marble tool. Wow. And then it goes in the kiln. So when I put it in the kiln, it does leave a mark on the bottom from where it came in contact from the kiln. So that's why I use that marble polishing machine. I put it in there, and it polishes and buffs out that mark that would be left from the kiln on the bottom of the marble.
And do you generally have a different market for your marbles than you do paperweights?
It is a very different market. Yes. I wish I had started making marbles a long time ago. I've really only been doing marbles for about 1.5 years, and a marble collector approached me, he was on Instagram and asked if I ever made marbles. I said, no, I never really gave it much thought. And I started making them, and I would say for probably every 7 or 8 marbles that I make, I probably make one paperweight for at this point. It's a very different market. It's a lot of people in their 20s, younger people that are gravitated towards the marbles. So, and I think it's a good way to get exposure for the paperweights as well. Like I just did a marble show back in August, this past August, and the promoter of the show, he wasn't familiar with paperweights, and I asked him, I said, do you mind if I put a couple paperweights in for the show as well? I whether they sell or not, I have no idea, but he was fine with that. And I think it was just a great way to expose a group of people that have never really seen those kind of paperweights or heard of them, other than Paul Stankard, that they all know who Paul is, but that's about as far as it goes with paperweights. So
cool. And then just this one I wanted to ask you about. What's going on here? Tell us about this paperweight. I just saw it on your website and thought, well, there's got to be a story behind this, right? It's
yeah, I just wanted to do something sculptural, and I was sitting on my iPad trying to brainstorm, like, what do I make? What do I want to make? Because I wanted to do something different. It gets challenging trying to come up with new ideas. So I don't know why a geisha just popped into my head. So I just started looking at images online from them, and I wanted a Japanese kind of themed plant to go with it, and I was like, I don't know what to fit in there with it, and I thought about the Japanese plum blossom tree. So
yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, really nice. Yeah, lovely weight. Brilliant. I think that is the last of those weights.
I saw Steve Rowe. It looked like you had one in your hands earlier, didn't you? So I don't know if you want to come off mute and then hold that up so we can see it. Oh, hold on, Brian. I don't know. Can you help Steve come off mute? Can you do that? I haven't got the controls to do that.
Hello.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hi everyone. Hi Clinton. Yes, I've got 4 of your weights now in my collection. 3 of them I bought off of you when others may remember. You came over here to speak to both Paperweight Collectors Clubs in 2017.
Yep.
So 3 of them were from there. One was, but I can't locate them, and I do apologise. One was a frog, one was quite delicate mauve flowers, and the other one was quite a large weight packed with large fruits.
Okay.
Yeah, but the new edition from an American auction house, and again, this is my collection, is another of your. Do you call these the Grateful Dead?
Yeah, it's the Grateful Dead bear. Yep.
Grateful Dead series. Yep. So this one's in yellow, but I like this. I also like the little mushroom there. I don't know if that's a deliberate reference to the Grateful Dead and what they survived on. But yeah, I really like that, and I didn't want to miss it, so it was great. Just for people looking, that's about. It's obviously bigger than a marble. It's only the one side, and it's just under. It's what I call a medium weight, just under 2.5 inches diameter. Yeah.
I mostly make 2 size weights, and that would be one. Eric Jump, that's one of the ones that Eric Jump commissioned me for.
Sure.
So if you look at the Grateful Dead bears, if you Googled them online, when he asked me to make them, I Googled them, and he wanted me to make all the colors. They're in, I forget how many different colors those bears are in, but each bear is in a different pose. They're always in the same pose. So when I was making them, I made sure that I made every color match the pose that they're supposed to be in. So if you went online, you're gonna find that yellow bear. That's how he always is online.
He's always posed. Right. Okay. I thought there was a bit of his. It was. I think it was just advertised as a dancing bear.
Yeah, that's what they call them, the dancing bears. Yeah.
But you know, the Grateful Dead and the as you explained, the specific pose and such, like, very interesting. Yeah, and it's a lovely weight.
Well, thank you. Wow, glad you got it.
So Clinton, how many more does Steve have to now collect to get the series?
I think I don't remember. I think I did 5 or 6 of the ones that size, and then I did 5 or 6 larger ones as well. And I think I looked at Eric's website about 3 weeks ago, and he still had a couple of them on his website, as far as I know.
Brilliant. Well, I'll just see if anyone else would like to take themselves off mute and ask any sort of final questions of you, Clinton, or anything that you've seen. So let me just flip through the gallery and see whether anyone is. No, I think in that case, Clinton, I think we're there then. Thank you. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really, really good. You know, obviously we can't come over and easily see you from all the different places around. So being able to have that, you know, get a visit, and thank you for your kindness to show us into your studio, but also to show us the different, you know, equipment, how you do it, and also to see the little bee being made. It's been really, really fantastic. So thank you ever so much. I know that some of you may be on Instagram and social media, so Clinton definitely posts lots of work on there, and it's great to see some of the images. They rotate, they're on videos, which is fantastic, and we look forward to seeing the weights in the Jeffrey Evans auction as well. So I think, yeah, I think we should just give you all come off mute, and we tried this with Victor when on our first one, but I think we can all just try and come off mute and give you a big clap as much as we can, as if we would be in a in face-to-face meeting.
So Vic, I think let's give everyone a few seconds to come off mute, and then you can do a countdown, shall we? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I appreciate you having me. That was fun. A fun way to spend my Sunday afternoon. I was just going to be outside sanding a deck. This is this is a lot funner than doing that. I appreciate you having me. It was an honor as well. So.
Okay, well, we'll try again now then. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you so much.
you.
That's wonderful.
And just for the members, everyone who's on the call, just to let you know, our next, for those of you who live in the UK, the next face-to-face meeting is the 5th of October, which is Twist Glass. So that's Mike and Sue Hunter. That's in Cambridgeshire in the UK. And then the next one we had scheduled is the Paperweight Pearl, which is our basically informal way to chat together, catch up with any auction news, get any help with any identification, or there might be some timely things that come up that we might want to talk about. At the moment, just to let you know, that is scheduled for the 3rd of November, but I am going to have to probably change the date 1 weekend forward or back. So I'll ask Angela just to come out and confirm the new date with you. So it'd be great to see you all on that, and brilliant. Enjoy the rest of your days, everyone. And thank you so much for joining, Clinton. And thank you everyone else for joining as well. So take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for organising it. That's wonderful.
Brilliant.
Bye.